So we're in Judges still. We did last week, we did one whole verse on Shamgar with Daryl. Wasn't that awesome to have Daryl here with us sharing? We've done Deborah, and this week we are on to my favourite judge. I'm so excited. So, just to remind us all, the book of Judges is this stage. We've got it here on our timeline. It's when God's people have come into that promised land. They haven't yet got a king, and they haven't fully obeyed God in clearing out the promised land and making sure they're not worshipping other gods. And so they go through these cycles, hence the ring round and round here, where they start to drift away from God. They start worshipping foreign gods and disobeying God. And then things go horribly wrong, and they come under attack from the nations around them. So they cry out to God. And God raises up a judge who gets them back on track with him and helps them defeat the enemy. So everything gets good for a while. But then they start to forget and they start turning away from God again and worshipping other gods again. And then things start to go wrong and another enemy comes to attack them. So they cry out to God and he raises up a judge. And they go round and round and round in this cycle. And I think I said last time I spoke from Judges, it's a bit like life. Do you think? We just end up going round and round. And you think by now, I would have learned. But no, God has to keep taking me round and round. So, we're in Judges this week, and where we're at is currently they are under attack from the Midianites. And the Midianites basically keep coming in and stealing all of their crops. And the story of Gideon, I think, is quite a well-known story. Who vaguely knows the story of Gideon? You sort of come, yeah? And I think perhaps the bit that we're often most aware of is the bit with his army. So God has called Gideon to lead an army to defeat the Midianites. And it's this whole thing of he gathers all the men and God says, no, your army's too big. Anyone who's feeling a bit nervous, let them go home. And the army gets reduced down. And then God says, no, they're still too big an army. I want you to know that it's me that's won this battle, not you. So let them all go and have a drink. And anyone who squatted down to drink, send them home. So he's only then got left in his army these people who scooped up the water in their hands to drink like that. And he ends up with this tiny army, and yet God defeats the Midianites through them. But there's so much more to Gideon's story. There's a load before that, and there's a load after. And I could preach at you for several hours on the story. Clara's enthusiastic. Shall we go for it, Clara? Mike's up for it now. You'll be pleased to know we're not going to do the entire story. We're just going to focus right back at the beginning of Gideon's story, right when God calls him. So it's going to be Judges chapter 6, verses 11 to 18, which is page 248 in the church Bible. So if you want to follow in a church Bible, dig that out and Mike will read to us.
Judges 6, verses 11 to 18. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive." Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you."
He's such a polite guy, Gideon, is he? "Pardon me, my lord, pardon me." So, Gideon, at the start of this account, where do we find him? Where is he? You're allowed to interact, by the way. He's in a wine press. What's he doing in the wine press? Wine press, threshing wheat. Now, in my great research into Israelite culture and agriculture, I have found out, prepare to be mind blown, wine presses are for pressing wine. Pressing grapes. They are not for threshing wheat. Wow, has that blown your minds? He is in this wine press threshing wheat. Little agriculture lesson for us here, okay? So a bit of farming. Anyone been watching Clarkson's Farm, the new series? Yeah, okay. It's not like him. Gideon did not have robot tractor, which was really cool. But anyway, so threshing wheat, the way they threshed wheat in those days, you would be out in a big open field and you'd have a threshing circle. So all the wheat, the grains of wheat that are made up of a husk, the outer sort of shell bit, and then the good stuff, the kernel inside, it would all be spread out on this threshing circle. And then you would get your oxen, and on the back of your oxen would be, I'm being the oxen here. Can you picture me as an oxen? Okay, you would have your threshing sledge, and a threshing sledge was this big wooden sledge that underneath it had loads and loads of sharp stones sticking out. And you get your oxen, and you would lead your oxen round and round and round whilst you stood on the threshing sledge for weight. And as it went round and round and round, all of those sharp stones would be cutting and crushing the hard husks on the outside of the wheat. Once you'd done that, you move your oxen out of the way, and then you get your wheat, you'd get a bit like fork type thing, and you would toss everything that was there up in the air. And because you're out in this open field, the wind would blow across, and the husks, the bits you don't want, were really light. And they would get blown away by the wind, so that what fell back down to the ground was the wheat, the bit you wanted, that you could make your flour to make your bread and everything from. Pressing grapes was a different process. And you can actually see in the picture here, this is actually a wine press. Okay? I don't know if it's exactly one from the era, but it's the same kind of idea. So basically, you can see there's kind of a top chamber, and that's where they would put all the grapes. It would usually be near to your vineyard, so sort of on a hillside to catch the sun, so near your vineyard, probably quite close to your village. And you'd put your grapes in the top, and they would all get squished and crushed up the top, and then the juice for them would trickle down, and you can almost see that there's sort of channels that would trickle them down into those pits. And that's where they would collect all the juice that they would then ferment to make the wine. The threshing field, the threshing circle, would be out in an open space for that wind and the space for the oxen to go round. But because it was out in a field, it was quite a vulnerable place. You could be seen for miles around. You couldn't easily defend yourself. The wine press, because it was nearer the vineyard in the village and it was a bit more enclosed, it was a bit more hidden. It was a bit easier to protect yourself. So Gideon's not being stupid here. I often think, Gideon is portrayed because he does that whole thing with fleeces and testing and, hang on, God, but should I really? And we often think that he's this, a little bit of a wimp. But actually, I would suggest to you, he's not stupid. If he were threshing his wheat out in that threshing field, the Midianites would see him. He wouldn't stand a chance. They would come and nick all of his freshly threshed wheat. That's really hard to say. By doing it here in the wine press, he's keeping it safer. He stands more chance. He's not a fool. This is a really sensible solution, but it's a lot harder threshing his wheat in that wine press. If nothing else, can you imagine trying to get a great big oxen and a threshing sledge in that? Is that going to work? No. So he's probably going to have to do that crushing, grinding process by hand. Being in the village or near the vineyard, where you're not so out in the open, that wind isn't going to be as strong. So when you're doing that tossing it up in the air bit, it's not going to blow the husks away as easily. So he's not being stupid. He's making a decision to protect his crop, but it makes it really hard work. Hot, hard, sticky work that's frustrating and takes 10 times as long as it usually would. And isn't that what life's like when we're living in fear, when our focus in life is, I must keep safe, I must keep this protected? It can be the right thing to do sometimes. But doesn't it make life harder work? When your focus is on keeping it safe, mustn't put anything at risk, must keep it safe. Everything becomes hard work. And so this is where we find Gideon making, I think, a pretty wise choice in the circumstances, but it's hard work. And we're told that as he's doing this, the angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Orpah. The angel of the Lord, who is this? You see, if you read carefully through the rest of the chapter, we learn that this isn't just any old angel who's popped along. If you follow the conversation between Gideon and this angel, it keeps switching between saying the angel of the Lord said and the Lord said. And right at the end of the passage we read, Mike told us how Gideon said, wait a minute, I want to go and get a sacrifice, an offering. And this angel of the Lord, when Gideon brings back that offering, this angel of the Lord receives the offering of worship. Now, angels that are just angels do not receive worship. They will not. There's plenty of stories elsewhere in the Bible where people try to bow down and worship an angel, and the angel goes, no, no, that is for God only. But this angel receives his sacrifice of worship. It burns it up in fire. This is the angel of the Lord. It's God. Or to be more specific, it's Jesus. Jesus, before he became incarnate, i.e. before he became that little baby who was born in Bethlehem, Jesus has come and appeared to Gideon. And Jesus comes and he sits down under the oak tree. And just pause and linger on that for a moment. Jesus comes and he sits down. You see, if I see someone, I don't know, I can see my husband Chris at the back of the room there, and I can just look at him from a distance. I might wave. I might call out to him, you all right, Chris? Yeah. Good. I might, and apologies to people who are watching this online later because I'm going to go off camera now, I might even walk past him. You all right? Yeah. You good? Yeah? But what if I now go and sit down? Does that say something different about my intention? About what I'm doing here? Yeah? Yeah, Chris is not square. There's a reason he sits behind the sound desk at the back, and it's not just because he's technically skilled. And that's made it even worse, hasn't it, darling? There will be conversations over lunch later. Jesus comes. He doesn't just look down from heaven at Gideon. He doesn't just stand at a distance. All right, Gideon. He comes and he sits down. And that word that we have translated as sits down, elsewhere in the Bible it's translated as remain or dwell. It's the same word that's used when Abraham has been called by God and he settles in the land of Canaan. It's the same word. There's a commitment there. This is not Jesus passing through. This is Jesus coming to dwell, to be settled there with Gideon. And I actually feel that for some of us this morning, this is the only bit of the sermon you need to hear. Please don't go away as soon as we finish this bit, but if you're feeling trapped, if you're feeling stuck in that pit, you're threshing wheat in a winepress and you're feeling stuck, you're in that state of self-preservation, just hear this one thing, that Jesus isn't sitting off up there in heaven looking at you from a distance. He's not calling out from a distance. He's not waving as he passes you by in your pit. He comes and he sits, settles, dwells with you where you are. If nothing else this morning, hold on to that. But what does he do, having sat there, to make this commitment to engaging with Gideon? You see, what I find really interesting is that he doesn't simply change Gideon's circumstances. How often when we're stuck is our prayer for God to change our circumstances? God, fix this. Change this situation. But that's not what God does with Gideon. God changes something in Gideon's mind. He changes his understanding of his circumstance in two ways. He changes Gideon's understanding of where he is, and he changes Gideon's understanding of who he is. Let me show you what I mean. So first of all, he changes Gideon's understanding of where he is. The angel of the Lord's greeting to him is, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Now that we know who this angel of the Lord is, it's Jesus. Literally true. The Lord is literally there with him. But Gideon hasn't realized that yet. And, we've already established Gideon's a fairly practical guy. He had a fairly practical solution to how to thresh his wheat here. And when this angel says to him, "The Lord is with you," he's like, hang on a minute. Let's weigh up the evidence, people. Gideon knows what it looks like when God is with you. He knows the stories of Moses and Joshua and the conquests and where God led them with that pillar of fire and parted the Red Sea and the walls of Jericho fell. And what Gideon's seeing in his life right now does not look like that. And so Gideon's saying, no, hang on. Doesn't weigh up. I know what it looks like when God is with me, and this ain't it. The evidence does not say that. But he gets something wrong in his observation. Because he says, "The Lord has abandoned us." That's his interpretation of the circumstances. And that's not quite true. The Lord hasn't abandoned them. They have abandoned the Lord. They've already been told that. If you read right back at the beginning of the chapter, before this whole thing with Gideon, a prophet has spoken to them and told them, "You're worshipping foreign gods. You're not being faithful to me. You need to get back on track." The Lord hasn't abandoned them. They have abandoned God. God never moved. They did. The Lord is with you. But he is not with the Lord. And in fact, if you follow on in the story of Gideon, the first thing that the angel of the Lord that Jesus tells him to do isn't to go and fight a battle. The first task he's given is to go and destroy all of the altars to the foreign gods. Come back to the one true God. That's the first mission. And isn't this exactly what we see Jesus doing hundreds of years later? When he comes and dwells here on earth with us. He comes and dwells with us. He came to us first in our pits to get us out of where we're stuck, to win the battle. But to do that, we have to be with him too. He came to us, but we have to be with him too. Our starting point is not going off, doing amazing things, fighting amazing battles, but coming to worship Jesus with everything. Not a little bit, not half of us and then the other half's worshipping something else, but with all of our heart, worshipping him. So he changes Gideon's understanding of where he is. The Lord is with him, and he needs to get with the Lord. And then he changes Gideon's understanding of who he is. Because when the angel of the Lord says, "Yep, I'm calling you," Gideon says, "Me? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." Is that true? No idea. Don't know. We don't know if that is true. But it's what Gideon thinks. And I wonder if there's a reason why he thinks that. You see, because what we do know is some stuff about his tribe. So, how many tribes of Israel are there? 12, okay? Do you remember, but with Joseph in his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, okay? Jacob and sons, right. In amongst those sons, there was this dude called Joseph, yeah? All familiar with Joseph? Have you come across the tribe of Joseph in the Bible? Huh. Because Joseph, as Jacob's favorite son, when Jacob, the father of those 12 tribes, was dying, Joseph took his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to Jacob to receive his blessing before he died. And Jacob, at that time, said, "Manasseh and Ephraim, Joseph's sons, you are like sons to me." He upgraded them from grandsons to sons. And so in Israel, you actually have, in those 12 tribes, the tribes of Manasseh and Ephraim. Okay? They weren't among the 12 brothers, they were sons of Joseph. You have the tribes of Manasseh and Ephraim. So bear that in mind to start with. Gideon's tribe that he comes from is one of the tribes that got a free upgrade. You know, do they really belong as an actual tribe in their own right? Because they got a free upgrade. They weren't really sons of Jacob. But more than that, in that time, when Joseph brought his 2 sons to Jacob to pray, I'm going to, Clara and Paul, come up here a minute. Okay, Jamie, you can come and be Jacob. Try and look elderly as though you're about to die.
That's an interesting one.
Okay, so, good. You're tucked up in bed, right. So here we have Manasseh, the older brother, and Ephraim, the younger brother. You've got to do a quick gender change for us, Clara, but that's cool. Okay, so Joseph, brings the brothers to Jacob to pray for them. So I'm going to bring my oldest son first, Manasseh.
I'll just hold on to this.
You're going to come and stand here next to Jacob's right hand, because the right hand gives the greater blessing that is reserved for the eldest son, Manasseh. And Ephraim, you come along as well. I know you're only the younger brother, but you still get a little blessing, but only from his left hand, okay? So here we go, Jacob. You're going to bless the 2 sons, but at the last minute,
Oh, right, I don't make it.
switch your hand. No, you don't die. You switch your hands over. No, it doesn't die. It doesn't die. You switch your hands over. So switch your hands over. And Joseph goes, no, hang on, you've got it wrong. No, this is the older son, this is the younger son. But Jacob switches his hands over and gives the firstborn blessing, the greater blessing, to the younger son. No, to the younger son. I was confused as Jacob was, it seems. To the younger son, Ephraim, and not to Manasseh. Round of applause for their amazing performance there. You may go and sit down again, guys. So Gideon's tribe had a free upgrade and didn't get the first son blessing that they should have had. What do you think that did to Gideon's mindset, belonging to that tribe? The tribe that had been snubbed. Second best. I know you're the older brother, but actually Ephraim, your younger brother, they're the better tribe. They're the bigger tribe. They're the tribe with the blessing. So whether Gideon is in the weakest clan in Manasseh and the weakest in his family, we don't know. But he believed that. His circumstances, his history told him that. Can any of us relate to that? You're the youngest. The things of your past, are there things that have been spoken over you that have labeled you as less than, as weaker, as not worthy? Whether it's true or not, it shapes how you see yourself. How do we resolve that? Because you see, the world's approach, I don't know about you, but if someone is saying to me, oh, I just feel like I'm not good enough, my instinct is to big them up. Yeah? You say, oh, come on, you're really good, you're really talented, you've got some amazing skills. I really think you can do this. You're amazing. You big them up. You give them a little confidence boost, don't you? Boost their self-esteem. Jesus doesn't do that. He doesn't respond to Gideon by saying, no, nonsense, Gideon. Your clan isn't the weakest. You're not the least in your family. You're amazing, Gideon. That's not what Jesus does. He says, I will be with you. I will be with you. You see, here's the cold hard truth. Gideon is not strong enough. Gideon is not capable of leading an army to defeat the Midianites. Not a chance. If he'd decided off his own back, stuff this threshing wheat in a wine press, I'm going to go fight the Midianites, he would be dead, squished, flat as a pancake. But God is with him. That's what makes the difference. And spoiler alert, if you hadn't read the rest of the story, when it comes to the actual battle with his teeny-weeny army, they barely have to fight. When the battle cry goes off, the Midianites panic and accidentally start fighting each other. And Gideon just sits there going, oh, okay. The cold, hard truth for us. Okay, I'm going to take you down, but we're going to go back up again, guys. Brace. You're not strong enough. Not one of you in this room, not me, not any of you are strong enough. Not one of us is good enough. Not one of us can manage it. But God is with us. And what Jesus says to us isn't, yes, you're amazing, you're good enough. But he says, you are precious enough. You are precious enough. You are loved enough. I am with you. Those things matter. You are precious. You are loved. God is with you. That's more powerful than how strong you are, than how good you are, than how skilled you are. You are precious. I'm saying it several times because I want you to get this. You are precious. You are loved. God is with you. That is more powerful than anything else. That is more powerful than your skill, than your ability, than your strength. You are precious enough. You are loved enough. Jesus is with you. So Jesus has met Gideon in this place of self-preservation, stuck. It's hard work. He's in survival mode. And Jesus changes Gideon's understanding of where he is. That God is with him. He just needs to get with God. And he changes his understanding of who he is. Who he is not defined by his strength, by his past, by his skill, but is defined by God's presence with him. His worth to God, how precious he is to God. What about us? Where do we find ourselves? Are there areas in our lives when we're being really practical? We're doing whatever the equivalent is for us of threshing wheat in a wine press. We're doing what we need to do to keep safe because the circumstances suck. We're not being stupid, but it's hard work. We're exhausted. It's draining. Jesus is here with you. He's not way off, calling to you from a distance. Come on, Helen, over here. He's come to you. He's sat down there with you. He's not going anywhere. And he may not immediately change your circumstances, but he is ready to change your understanding of your situation. He is ready to change your understanding of who you are in him. Not to big you up and reassure you how wonderful you are, but to tell you how precious you are to him, how loved you are by him, and that he is with you. Band, do you want to come up ready to lead us in our song? Because where I want to land this today is simply to ask you, will you let him do that? Will you let him change your mind, change your understanding? Will you let him sit next to you and lead you forwards? And as the band start to play, I'm just going to leave us with the one phrase that I think sums up the whole heart of this message to Gideon. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. I'm just going to pray, and then the band are going to lead us. Father, wherever we are, whatever our circumstances, however well we're doing with them, however hard we're working to try and manage difficult situations, may we know that you are here with us. Lord, if we've put up barriers in our minds to that, if like Gideon, we're looking at the circumstances and saying, oh, come on, this is not what it looks like when God is with us. Jesus, would you sit next to us right now as we sing, that we would know you are here? Would you pour into our minds those truths of how precious we are to you? of how loved we are by you. That we would find our security, our strength, and our courage not in our own abilities, but in your love for us. Help us, Father, to see ourselves the way you see us, to truly grasp that love, that we would be free to climb out of our pits and to walk forward in courage and in faith in you. Amen.